Perfect. So with me on stage today, obviously we've got Jonas, you've just heard from around what ViaPlay has been doing in the Nordic market. We're joined by Jeroen Ghijsen, who is the CEO of Metrological.
Thank you.
Andy Thoms, who is the EMEA Strategic Relationships Manager for Media and Entertainment at Google. We've got Stéphanie Röckmann, who is the Director of Content and Media at Proximus. And last but not least, we have Szalay, who is the Head of International Business at Espial. Now, I'm going to start with Jeroen, if you don't mind.
Sure.
You work with a whole range of different service providers to create and build OTT services. Now, we've obviously seen a pretty rapid expansion in the volume of these in the market at the moment. I mean, how many can we realistically expect to see, or indeed, how many can the market support?
Well, that's actually funny. We have been in the market for, I think, over 10 years now, and we see the same explosion and the rapid growth going on. On stage were a few examples already where the content is being aggregated. And what we see now is actually that customers, our customers, which are actually the service providers, are shifting from a nice-to-have to a really must-have experience. In this manner, we see, for example, with a customer which we launched recently, it's Telecolumbus. We saw that actually their need and their necessity for a full integrated experience of the content aggregators was much higher than with our customers probably 5 years ago. And finally, what we think it's a must-have, and the consumer will finally decide how many of those will be supported and how many won't be supported, because finally the end consumer has the remote control in its hand and will decide for viewing this content or not.
And so just to pick up on that, Stéphanie, your company's had first-hand experience and integrating OTT applications into its systems. I mean, how did that go for you guys?
We took the stand a couple of years ago, really making a clear decision to say we're a telco, we're not a media company, and our core business is connectivity. That being said, connectivity without content doesn't make much sense, and so voilà, we see ourselves as a content aggregator that gives access to what people want to consume. And so the first step into really making that clear was to integrate Netflix onto our set-top box, and that has actually been fantastic, to be honest. It's, this was done, and interesting to hear about user experience on set-top boxes not being great. We actually started by rolling out Netflix on our latest set-top box generation for that reason, for that very reason, because we wanted the experience to be really flawless. And actually, it took us we had to row a little bit with Netflix because we tested the integration longer than what they would have expected, but precisely it needed to be spot on perfect. And this has been, one of the flawless releases we've done. And so little by little, we actually managed to get it on and it's on all our generation set-top boxes now. And it's a fantastic experience. I mean, just talking from my own perspective as a regular consumer, and the user experience and the UX is so important. And as you say, I mean, especially on a service like Netflix that is readily available via dozens of means, you need to make it something really seamless and flawless.
And Peter, you've helped a number of operators launch advanced TV solutions integrating OTT. Would you echo they're good business reasons for doing this? What are the advantages for operators?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you very well.
Oh, sorry, for Peter.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Just following up on that, yeah.
Yeah, could you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, sure. So what have you found? Because you've helped a number of European operators do something not a million miles away from this, and presumably there are good business reasons for doing that. I mean, can you share some of the rationales and the effects, I suppose, of it?
Yeah, I mean, we've helped a couple of operators deploy, and for them it's about giving customers and their consumers content that they want and what they're looking for. So a couple operators, just to mention, Nosh was one, who is a very leading innovator in the Portuguese market. They launched our services about mid-year last year. They were able to blend advanced TV services with not only their own content, but also third-party content, and brought a level of personalization to the equation where they allowed social media to interact with the experience, integrated YouTube, and are working on several other content sources as well. So we do see it becoming a very major theme across operators today. The second operator is Tele Columbus. They took our full end-to-end cloud and client solutions, delivering our services across set-top box and mobile devices. There, we worked and helped them aggregate various types of content sources. Jeroen mentioned Metrological was one with their app stores, but they also took regional SVOD, like from Maxdome, and transactional VOD from Ubiquity, and various broadcasting applications that leverages HBBTV. And really the value that these guys are providing is we help them integrate all this rich metadata so it gives their consumers this unified search and really be able to simply and very quickly get access to content that they want. So
just to pick up, you mentioned YouTube there. I mean, Andy is the Google representative. Where does Google fit into the mix here? Are you an aggregator, distributor, platform, friend or foe to broadcasters and
Sure.
service providers?
Yeah, good question. I mean, to me, the word would be partner, and I say that openly acknowledging we may not have always done a fantastic job of telling that story. But if you think about where Google started as purely a search engine, we've evolved a lot over time. We have a lot more products and services now, and we feel we're in a position now where we can offer products that add value to the broadcaster, aggregator industry across their whole value chain, whether that's around content creation, distribution, discovery, monetization. So, I mean, if you think about an aggregator, be they a broadcaster or a pure OTT operator, they could have their app built on Android, available on the Play Store, integrated into Chromecast to be able to, so their users can stream that content to the big screen. They could dynamically insert advertising using DoubleClick, and even now diversify into an area like the Google Cloud Platform that we're really excited about, where we're looking to bring our machine learning capabilities and capabilities in big data analysis to various different industries, but that includes the media industry and things like image rendering, recognition, content discovery, and whatnot. So there's a lot of opportunity out there. Just to touch on, I guess, your first sentence, are we a platform, a distributor, or an aggregator? Not an easy question to answer, but the way I'd look at it would be, we're a tech company that operates a range of platforms that aggregators can use to distribute their content, among other things.
Yeah. And so, Jonas, over to you now. One of the interesting things you mentioned in your presentation was that, despite the fact that you're one of the leading Scandinavian SVOD services, you're not on set-top boxes. You gave a few good reasons for that. Is that something you'll never consider doing? I mean, you aggregate content, you package it up, but you're not selling third-party services, and you're not on third-party platforms.
I would like to start off by saying that the most important stuff for us is to be on the screens where the customers wants to be. And we are present on the big screen via a lot of different devices. Smart TVs, Apple TV, Chromecast, for instance, and also you can cast in multiple ways. We have not chosen to be on the set-top boxes yet. I think there might be an opening as more and more operators are moving to an Android-based set-top box. Mm-hmm. We have not been interested in building native apps. Because for us, it becomes too cumbersome to host and be able to first develop the apps, but then also to, when you push new releases, to be able to do it at a very high quality with the different native apps. So we have chosen to keep it as, the portfolio as tight as possible, but with now the Android set-top boxes, this might become much more interesting.
Mm-hmm. And going back to, and this is for the whole panel, the point before I asked Jeroen about how many of the services are in the market. You guys are in quite a crowded market. Operators presumably have to make fairly tough decisions about what they curate and include in their application. Are there just too many services out there at the moment, and do we need someone to start pulling them back together? Would anyone like to take a stab at that?
As said, I truly believe that finally the end consumer will give their decision on this. So nowadays you see a lot of content aggregators lining up, and there are great services out there. And it's just like live TV services. So you need to have like 500 TV channels to have 90 or 95% consumer satisfaction. And I think the same will go into this world where you have content aggregators putting all the great content out there. And my preferred 10 content aggregators are probably not yours and from anybody else. So I think
if we take that channel analogy in the TV market, you can get 400 channels for maybe $70 a month.
Correct.
But at the moment in the on-demand market, that might cost you $400. I mean, Stéphanie, for your customers, I'm guessing you wouldn't want to present them with that bill in a given month.
And that would be very difficult. It would. I think one of the key learnings when you listen to everything that happens, it's very interesting to see how, the level of disruption is huge. The scattering, where it used to be about premium content and big brands, long tail is really hitting off. And that's a good thing, because I think fundamentally we haven't gone into long tail. It hasn't materialized, and we are finally getting into a stage where technology will allow us to really deal with it. And technology of being able to serve the breadth of the content, and then mix it with content discovery tools. That's yet another nut we haven't been able to crack, and that's fundamental. If you don't manage that, it's going to be very, very difficult out there. Willingness to pay, though, is yet another thing, and it's very interesting to see. I mean, there's a huge difference between markets when it comes to that for historic reasons. Between a household in the US that is used to pay over $100 for a cable subscription, and I come from a country where my cable subscription is costing a whopping €12.50. And you have 85 channels in your basic subscription. So that has fatally a huge impact on the amount of content you will want to consume extra and the willingness to pay.
Yeah,
Jonas,
I agree.
I'd be willing to aggregate ViaPlay on Proximus TV if you...
Do you have an Android-based
Sure.
set-top box?
Yeah, we could try that.
Yeah, we have experiences in North America. Espial has a hosted operated service, and we serve over 40 service providers where we are aggregating content. So the price points there are a little bit higher, and we do see, the great demands for a great variety and breadth of content. In that service, what we call Elevate, we're delivering not only YouTubes, but Netflix and Hulu's, and we're onboarding Amazon. And there is a big appetite, but I think the business dynamics are changing very rapidly, internationally as well, and there is going to be a limit to, I guess based on pricing and maybe capacity in terms of how much is enough for what the consumers want. But we're happy to be bringing that same service to the European market, so we're very excited about deploying that this year.
No, I think it's, I don't actually find it such a relevant question, because what will happen is if the consumers loves the products, they will sign up for them. If they don't, they will not. And then that app or that streaming service will go out of market.
Natural selection approach.
So it's pretty simple. And I think what we're seeing now compared to before is an environment and an industry where you can actually launch stuff much easier than in the past, where you had big hurdles to come into the market. But this will be self-regulating. So I think it's fantastic to see all those new ventures coming up and trying out their services. And you would see consolidations, you will see some coming in being successful, others coming out. When it comes to the aggregator thing, at least what we're seeing in the Nordics is that it is not that difficult, because I bring my aggregator, which is this one. I think all of us has that one. Super simple. They also do universal search. And it's easy to swap between the different UIs. I can push it up via Chromecast or whatever into the big screen. So there are many aggregators out there, and we will see that evolving over time, and probably there will be room for more than only one.
And where do some of the newer social services fit into the mix? So if we consider, say, Facebook Live and Twitter streaming platforms, Andy, would you consider them? Where would you fit them into the market? Are they new opportunities or new platforms? Are they going to compete with existing aggregators?
I mean, I'd put them, or that whole area, in the opportunity category for sure. I mean, from our perspective, clearly YouTube has a live streaming service as well, where if you're a channel operator with more than 1,000 subscribers, you can live stream. And if you think about some of the biggest live stream opportunities we've had on YouTube, most of those have come from traditional broadcasters and content owners. So the likes of Sky live stream Sky News 24 hours a day. We just announced yesterday for the second year in a row that BT Sport is going to live stream the Champions League final and the Europa League final on YouTube, and this time around do it in 360 virtual reality. Last year they did it for the first time. They got 3 million views. A lot of those viewers were people that may not have subscribed to BT Sport, who could actually experience that content for the first time, and they got a pretty qualified list of an audience that they could target for future subscriptions as well. So that's a great opportunity for BT or BT Sport, who are an aggregator. So for me, there's a huge opportunity there, just because it's another area where, or another method of distributing content, doesn't necessarily mean it's pure competition.
So if I could ask the audience to be thinking of a few questions over the next minute or two, I'll stop at a couple of points over the next few minutes so you can ask the panel. Before I do that, something you mentioned then, and obviously your experiences, Jonas, technical challenges. So delivering 360 VR to a set-top box may be a very, very different experience to a different sort of connected device. I mean, what are the main barriers to service aggregation? We'll probably find a whole host of different experiences. Is it technical, content, strategic problems? I mean, would we ever see Amazon bundling in Netflix into its partners program, for instance? I mean, what are the biggest challenges that you guys see for aggregation?
Well, I think if you look at the past, it mostly was technical, because the set-top boxes weren't capable of onboarding all these services. I think what you see nowadays, you need an abstraction layer, or actually a layer which makes sure that the OTT content which you onboard isn't disrupting the full set-top boxes. So people used to go native, like Netflix was a native solution, and you would put Hulu next to it, and then Amazon, but your set-top box would be fully disrupted because there's no resources left anymore. So cloud-based services made it possible to onboard all this kind of content, and I think that is where the thing is, and the opportunity lies, to actually onboard the content in a seamless manner and actually integrate it into your guide, integrate it as a channel tuning service. So tuning your channel is actually coming across Netflix or YouTube or whatever service is out there.
So I'd probably guess that, Jonas, you'd maybe say technical rights. I mean, Stéphanie, I mean, content rights, is that still a problem, or has that largely been solved? Or?
Well, actually, it's good that you mentioned that, because that, to me, is really one of the big elephants in the room. Yeah. And, studios not being here, speaks to that. It's the rights that we need to provide a really good service are lagging behind. And that is a serious issue. I find it, and don't get me going, because it's really, I go off like a little rocket. I find it absolutely unbelievable. I mean, there are still studios with whom we have to have discussions on, our TV, our convergent rights, TV everywhere. And then they say, oh, but we will give you Wi-Fi rights in the home, but not outside of the home, and the signal cannot be in HD. And they kind of go, what? We pay you? We pay a lot of money for these rights? I mean, how does that make sense to prevent the people who are actually not disrupting the value chain and who make it their life mission to develop services that give peace of mind, ease of use, and that protect the value chain? How does it make sense to prevent these people from actually deploying quality service? When the next thing you do is you go on Kodi and you find everything in HD instantaneously, and it's illegal. And that's a real issue. And I don't know how we're going to solve that, but we have to.
So that seems like a good point to stop for a moment for questions. Are there any audience questions for the panel? We've got a couple over here. Excellent. If you could say your name and company as well.
Yeah, it's Bill Gash at CSG International. We heard from Now TV, we heard a very good presentation from Jonas Karlen this morning. Gary Davey of Sky at a conference last week was saying that for a pay TV operator, their biggest focus is just holding on to the customers they already have. So while I'm impressed by what Jonas presented for ViaPlay and its success, and what we saw from Now TV, for a lot of pay TV operators, their big concern is people drifting away from the core product. And I wanted to understand, you said you haven't really tied the two together, ViaPlay as a separate product to Viasat. Is that something which is really viable? Do you not feel it should be just one experience today, rather than two separate products?
It's a good question. What we did back in 2007 was to launch ViaPlay as an incubator, not being a part of the traditional pay TV, due to the fact that we didn't want to be put into the strains of being a traditional operator and thinking too much about cannibalization, binding periods, etc., etc. And we've kept it ever so since. But a big thing we did around 5 years ago was that for all Viasat subscribers, they also get access to ViaPlay as their multi-screen service. So there's a great connection where we also see that the customers using ViaPlay as a part of their Viasat traditional pay TV subscription are far more loyal than the other ones. So we have put more or less all our energy on creating a super ViaPlay experience that is also then enjoyed by the Viasat subscribers. So by that we connect the two initiatives. And I think that is so important. To be able to give you a full body of a super crisp experience when it comes to everywhere viewing.
And Peter and Jeroen, you're obviously creating solutions for providers. Are you tending to find that they want you to build things to protect their core customer base, or are they doing, as
I think what's really important is simplifying the user experience across all the content that you're aggregating. And really, I think the challenge right now for a lot of the pay TV operators, what we see is how quickly can they do this? There is great market pressure, and so there are concepts out there across various standards organizations pushing for agile methodologies and DevOps. It's really those operators that can really kind of get off the dime and really start innovating very quickly and start aggregating this stuff, because look at it, pay TV operators have been aggregating content for a long period of time. They have a lot of experience, they have masses. Some of the standards organizations are getting behind, trying to put some extra leverage on folks like Netflix and others, saying, hey, you should serve a broader community, just don't look at Proximus alone, who is having their own challenges with getting access to content, because all these guys really want is scale, right? They want numbers, and that's what really moves the dime for them. So we do see a shift, but it's not fast enough, unfortunately, for some of the smaller operators.
Would you echo that?
Well, yeah, from my perspective, I think it's actually, if you look at the perspective from an end consumer, it's a huge opportunity. I don't want to sit in front of my TV channel having to switch HDMI channel or having to do all kinds of input channel switches because I just wanted to watch Netflix. I think the integrated experience, which nowadays is possible, like I said before, channel tuning and going through your OTT channels as well is a huge opportunity for both the operators, but from an end consumer perspective, that is actually what I would like. I would just like to sit back, relax, and have my remote control and watch the shows I want to watch at that current time. And if it could be integrated with recommendations or magic wands or whatever we've seen today, that is the experience you as an end consumer would love to have. And I think it's not only churn reduction, but I think it's leading to an increase of your subscriber base finally, because what would be my reason to go to another internet provider, getting a set-top box from A, B, and C, which I have to set next to each other, switching my input if I want to watch Hulu or HBO or whatever. So I think it's finally, it will lead up to a better market for the operators in the end. I
think we're seeing it to some degree as well, though. Right? I mean, what we've seen is pay TV providers, operators come to us and look to integrate YouTube into their set-top boxes. So in the UK with the Sky and the Sky Q box with Virgin Media, the YouTube app is integrated, and not just integrated, but to some degree within the EPG as well. So, I mean, YouTube has a range of different content on it, like 400 hours of content uploaded every minute. Some very like what you see on a normal broadcaster, some very different. But all of that content for those set-top boxes is now much more seamlessly available if you're watching that interface. So it is possible, and that's the path we're seeing at the moment.
So just to follow up on that, and for the whole panel, obviously there's a very different experience. It's lean back on the set-top box. Navigation is navigation and UI a much bigger concern when you're integrating into a set-top box based environment because it's slower, you can't search as easily, or is that now changing because of the better advanced features, perhaps voice search?
It's not a concern, but I think that's one of the key. You know, I mean, giving access to an app store, but then hiding it away somewhere. That's not the idea. I mean, I think the super advantage of a set-top box is that it gives very easy access. And as you say, it makes a difference between having to, change remote controls or have to go through 4 clicks before you actually end up where you want to be, or just zapping through, watching television. And as part as watching, I mean, Netflix is on channel 204. Where are you? 204, okay, here I am. And you can replicate that with pretty much any non-linear service. So, the set-top box as such, I think, is a fantastic one-stop shopping destination with, ease of mind, carrier billing, all goes on an invoice. So I do see, I mean, I'm biased, obviously, but I see a lot of reasons why, it's a good thing that set-top boxes are still around.
I think that whether it's a set-top box and how you define a set-top box, I think we might be a bit too narrow on defining that today. Because set-top box to me could be my device here. I cast it up. It's easy to search. It's easy to push it up on the screen. It is easy to subscribe, unsubscribe to services via the App Store. It could also be the Apple TV, the new box, ATV4, super experience, Google Chromecast, super experience, Apple TV 4 with the inputs, etc. They now have automatic input selector, so when you push start that service, automatically it pushes up on your smart TV. So the stuff about choosing input selector, I think that is more and more also disappearing. Then so the battle would be around who can create the best user experience. Is it Google? Is it Apple? Is it the traditional operators with the set-top boxes? There might be room for more than one. There has been in the past. I think there will be. So I think one is not excluding the other. But you need to be super sharp on the user experience because otherwise you will leave that service. You also need to challenge everything from how you bundle packages, how you work with binding or earned loyalty. So there is a transition happening. There is a transformation to consume more and more media, also meaning that there is room for more services than only one. So I think that it's not just about cannibalizing, it's about taking the new viewing minutes onto your service.
I think what we actually see happening in the market is that the end consumer really couldn't care less. They probably don't even know the word OTT, whether it's OTT, live TV, or where it came from. So just the relaxedness and the ease of use, including taking care of one payment integrator, so you pay one bill to one company and they take care of everything. I think that is what we are seeing in the market and what is happening to date. It is indeed the user experience, so the relaxedness and easiness of using the content and actually consuming the content is what the end consumer demands for. And I think a position like the operator has to date is perfectly suited to deliver this. So that's actually what we see happening.
So I'm conscious we're running up on the end of the session. So I'm just going to finish by asking each of the panelists one very quick question, which is, which services do you have and use in your home? So, Jonas.
I have so many. I actually today don't have a traditional package.
That's
so
fitting.
I only use the online services. And I have like 5, 10, 8 or 10, I think.
Okay. Your own?
Yeah, so I do have the traditional package and actually some services on top of it. I don't think it's 8 out of the 10, but probably 5 or 6.
Andy, what do you have at home?
So I have at home, I subscribe to everything via BT, but I'll caveat that just to anyone else in the room, that's because I live in a very small village where Virgin haven't cabled yet, and also it's a conservation area, so I can't have a satellite dish. So that's why, and I subscribe to Netflix.
Yeah. Stephanie?
Voilà, my own
Need
stuff.
I ask?
TV replay
Yeah.
is our going back 36 hours, Netflix, Amazon.
So you're stacking pay TV and SVOD.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
we're not the audience, you know. That's part of what we need to know what's out there. So, you know.
This is business purposes only. And Peter?
Yeah, I have a traditional service along with Netflix.
Perfect. Lovely. Well, if I could ask the audience to give a round of applause for the panelists, I'm sure you'll be able to catch them in the break.